Okay, so welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay in starting this. We're very happy to have a guest coming from out of town to teach us about a topic that's really relevant right now. My name is Dylan Robertson, and I'm with the Canadian Association of Journalists in the Ottawa chapter. And today's event is organized by two groups. You'll see it on the handout there. It's the CAJ's Ottawa chapter and also the Indo-Canadian Press Club. They've been a huge help, and we really thank them for putting this all together. I'll tell you a little bit about the event here, but before that I just wanted to thank Media Style for organizing the space here. It's very kind of to give us a free space to do these sort of events, for non-profits. Sangameswaran, or Sangam, Manikkayam is a principal security architect with Symmetric, Canada. Symmetric is based out in Montreal, in Mississauga. Sangam has over 2 decades of industry experience in information security. He's worked with customers in government, in law enforcement, telecom, banking, transportation, energy, education, and much more. He was invited by Interpol to speak at the International Cybersecurity Conference in India. His academic qualifications included a degree in electronics and communication engineering and a postgraduate management degree. Just a note from Sangam, these are his personal views as an information security practitioner. It's not his employer's views, these are guidelines. Please adopt it to suit your own needs. You'll see in the handout here, there's some extra tools that you can take up. There's supplemental reading, and we really recommend that you actually get a better understanding there. And please carefully evaluate your requirements and adopt a strategy that works for you. This is just a guidance, obviously. We can't be held liable for what you hear today. So just getting that out there. And I'll just invite Sangam to take the stage and tell us all about information security. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for the beautiful introduction. So I had to put those disclaimers just to make sure that these are not my employer's views, these are my personal opinion. So as a security practitioner, so I went through a lot of reference materials to make sure that you, the audience, get the best from the session. So please make sure that you go through the references in detail after the session for further supplemental readings to enhance your security knowledge. And the knowledge learning does not end here. It has to continue. After this session you don't think about cybersecurity, then the session is of no use. So I highly recommend that you continue follow through your learning process with it. A quick introduction about me. I'm a cybersecurity specialist. I work in the cybersecurity space. I love adventure sports, skydiving, cross-country running, and stuff like that. I also do gliding. I'm also a radio talk show host. I host a segment called Life, which deals with all aspects about life in one of those channels in Toronto. I also write. I'm a freelance writer and columnist writing about current affairs and technical issues or the tech support issues and stuff like that on one of those online news portals as well. So that's my media relationship. I'm also a member of Indo-Canadian Press Club as well. Just to reiterate so that we get it documented that the disclaimer is on the slides as well. These are my personal views again. It does not reflect any of my employers' views. These are guidelines only. Please don't hold me accountable for decisions what you make. You have to make some informed decisions. Supplemental reading is highly recommended because that is required. This session does not cover everything. This is only a starting, but maybe we can have a follow-up sessions later. Don't do anything illegal. Please check the legal requirements before you do anything so that you fall within the legal limits, so that you are not doing anything illegal. So, is cybersecurity important? All my sessions are interactive sessions, so I want the session to be interactive.
Yes.
It is important,
Yeah.
right? Especially after the past few days. It is. becoming aware about these things have been going on, this has been happening. So if you read some of those news articles which happened at the time when Snowden revealed some of the information about the surveillance and all these things happening, it would be interesting to know that anyone who was using email and chat and all those things were getting documented. So it has to be careful in what is happening with that. So cybersecurity is important. So whether you are a journalist, whether you are a common person, or whether you are a healthcare practitioner, or whether you are a banker, or whether you are an IT employee, it has nothing to do with thinking about, oh, this is only for IT. No, this is a practice, so you have to put those practices in action. So this is a small cartoon which talks about cybersecurity in your neighborhood coffee shop. It's self-explanatory, I don't need to read it through, but you can clearly make out that someone who has been asking the same questions again and again will make sure that that person is using identifiable information. So you use the same thing again and again. People can identify you because the patterns are almost the same, and it's the same words which are being used again and again. Use multi-factor, two-factor, authentication, coffee, and this, milk, cream, sugar, and all those things. This becomes identifiable. So some things to note. So if you see, information security as such has three major goals. It's all about, we call it as triads. The CIA. It's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So each of these triads, like each of these parameters, are having its own relevance to that. Confidentiality means that unauthorized usage of systems and information is being protected. To that source and then respond proactively and then get that information and get that as a news item is of prime importance. A news delayed is news finished. So a news which has to come out today morning at 6 has to come out at 6. If it is delayed, somebody else may come out with the same news and then it loses the charm for them. So time is of importance, availability is of importance. You will see this if you have been reading through the Snowden revelation online. Initially, when the journalist whom he contacted took some time to respond because he didn't have the necessary tools so that he could handle and process those information. So you should always be equipped. You never know what kind of information is coming through your way from your sources. So you should always be prepared, always be prepared. Some of the basic security principles. I hope I'm not blocking your way. Okay. So some of the basic security principles use good passwords. So what's a good password? It's in one of those slides following up. And manage them well. You had a comment?
No, just anticipation.
Oh yeah, you should see that. Yeah.
Is it XKCD?
The password managers?
No, the cartoon, is it XKCD?
Yes.
Okay.
It's also coming from that. Be particularly careful about your email passwords. You would see this as an impact because most of the websites use your email as your password reset. If you lose access to a specific website, they will ask you forgot your login details. They will email you the username and password in your email. So if your email ID is compromised, they will have access like keys to the magical kingdom. Go to every website and then try your combination and get it reset and get that access to those websites. It's dangerous. Recognize and avoid phishing. So it's a no-brainer that phishing attacks has been happening over a period of time. It's been happening. So I have some of the slides, which is not from the same cartoon series, but it's good. Encrypt your disk or encrypt your data, encrypt your information. Don't save it in plain text. Plain text or clear text is always vulnerable for attacks, and then they can read it. Think of it like you have a password which is written on a post-it note and stuck onto your computer. How disastrous that would be. It is. Never write your password. If you write your password, then it's not a password. Either keep it in your brain or use one of those standard password managers. While browsing sensitive topics, if you don't want to be tracked, you could use Tor. Tor stands for the onion router. So if you are familiar with that, use that for browsing sensitive topics so that you are not tracked. Consider using a VPN whenever you are accessing unsecure wireless from any of the coffee shops. I'm not taking names. Any of the coffee shops or those messages are transmitted in clear text. So anyone coming and trying to sniff it will be able to find out what you are doing online. So be careful with that. Communicate securely using encryption, like email encryption. Send encrypted email messages so that you know for sure that some of the basic principles of security are not violated. Keep track of your sensitive information, where you have stored the information. Keep track of it. There is nothing dangerous. There is a targeted attack to make sure that you should get frustrated by clicking and removing those spam emails and phishing attacks. Getting pop-ups, starting to offer that, oh, your system is running slow. We could help you fix it. Click here to get it fixed. Somebody who says, yes, I will click to get my system fixed. Yes, it will be fixed for some different purpose. So be careful with that. Increase network traffic on your network, be it your home use or office use. There is an increased traffic happening from your system is suspicious. Even though you are not accessing anything online, you see sudden bandwidth going up. Some infection on your system is trying to siphon off some data from your system to your network outside. So it could be indicators of compromise. So, what kind of systems should be used then? So the references are already been given. So the references are very clear, like choose a hardware anonymously, just to make sure that it doesn't come pre-installed with tracking software installed. So choose the hardware anonymously, don't tell anyone from where you are buying, you can construct your own machine. Maintain two separate systems, one connected for your day-to-day work and the other one not connected, totally disconnected. It's called as air-gap system. Air-gap systems never go online. So chances of they getting compromised and information being siphoned off from that machine is absolutely nil, unless something goes wrong and stuff like that. So Glenn Greenwald, when he was handling Edward Snowden information, he was maintaining two separate systems. So that could be one of the reasons why he took time to respond to Snowden's early communications to respond, saying that yes, I am here to listen. So maintaining two separate systems is always recommended. One air-gap and one a standard system. Choose safe operating systems like Tails. You could visit the website for what exactly it is. You could run it from a USB device, from a USB drive. You could run the operating system. After your usage, you remove your USB drive. That's it. So the system is gone. Use encryption for secure communications. It's a no-brainer. Always encrypt removable media drives. So removable media drives could always be used against people as an attacking mechanism, or they could be used to get the information out. So when you are walking, you see a USB drive in the parking lot or in the bus or in your train, chances that 60-70% of people might try to take that home and try to plug in and see what is there in that USB drive. That's a human mentality. It's a curiosity to find out what is there in that. Is there something of importance? Never do that unless you have a secure system to make sure that you scan for any kind of infections which would come to your system and then use your system for something else. So use it encrypted so that even if you lose the drive, USB drive, anyone who will see that cannot have access. It is encrypted. It's garbage for anyone who is having access to it. use file encryption. File level encryption is always better because each file will be encrypted rather than the entire drive getting encrypted. Because the drive encryption and the file encryption, there is a subtle difference. A drive encryption is for the whole disk, whereas a file encryption is for individual files. So once you log into an encrypted drive, the contents are unencrypted. So then they can use like social engineering techniques like tap your shoulder, you turn this way, plug the USB drive in. Some of the USB drives come with surveillance programs as well. Some of them are costly. So you could search online to find out more about what do they look like. Some of them look really suspicious, but those are high-end hardware created for surveillance. Use multi-factor authentication wherever there is an option to use, so that there is one more step up or one more level of authentication access for your account. Data. So data is important. The data security aspects, the risk associated with that could be loss of information, corruption, interception. Interception is critical for the past 2-3 weeks. Theft, deleted data recoverability, that's also another concern. De-anonymizing, compromising data. So these are the major concerns from a data security perspective. So the security actions which follows up with that are, you should back up your data, you should encrypt your data, securely share files, securely wipe or delete data. Bleaching is one of those words which has been happening from the election campaigns, what you would hear in US. Delete the metadata. The metadata is also important. It's about the data about another data. So it's a pointer kind of stuff. So deleting that is also important. Encrypting hard drives, there are some options. On Mac, you can use native applications to do that. On Windows, like you can use, there are some tools which you can use, like VeraCrypt, you can use that, for encrypting the data. Please intervene if you have any questions, concerns, any clarifications required, because I don't know what's your understanding level, so that I could fine-tune my approach. Are we on the right path?
I have one question, just before I forget about it. You mentioned air-gapped computers. Are there any recommendations to avoid? So I know that some computers, when you get them, they've already been connected in order to put things on the computer when you buy it from the store. So do you have any recommendations that way?
Oh, so you buy a computer from the store,
Some of them already have things
pre-installed.
on them having been, in the pre-installation process, they would have been connected to the internet.
Okay.
Are there any you recommend avoiding because of that?
Yeah, so if you are security conscious, take the hard drive out, crush it, and use another hard drive bought from another store.
Okay.
It's a security 101 basic principles. And then put a custom operating system on top of it, rather than the pre-installed. If you are conscious about your sources, protecting your sources, information given by them, then you should make every step to make sure that you have almost bulletproof system to handle that data. If you are compromising by saying I won't spend $100, $200 on an external hard drive, it's always a concern. So one of the standard practices is sensitive information will always be stored on removable drives, will not be in the system. So you travel, move around with your system, you lose the system, okay, anyone having access to the system, there is nothing in that. It's too good to be true, too clean to be true. That's a suspicious thing, like there is nothing on a journalist computer means that they are storing the information somewhere else. So whenever you are going online next, unsecured, people can use the system as a backdoor entry into your wherever storage you are accessing and stuff like that. By mistake, if you forget to turn off your wireless antenna, your wireless connection, before you connect your USB drive, it defeats the purpose. So security is all about, like, you might do the same security steps 20 times. Good. One time you don't do it, it becomes a disaster. So build your own systems, don't buy anything right outside the store to use it. It's like how to build a system. There are references like how to do it. So standard practice, source from multiple points, and multiple points should not know that you are ordering that. So,
Maybe this is tinfoil hat stuff, but is there a quick, not too expensive way to build your own Faraday cage at home, or
yeah, you build your own?
Faraday cage?
Oh yeah, you can. You can do that. So one of those operating systems, what I said, is actually free. And you can download and you can create your own install. And it gives a lot of tools to make that you are using it in a secure way to send files, drop files, communicate with others, and then remove that from the system. The system seems there is nothing on the system. So you can use that. It's least expensive, it is inexpensive. Some of the concerns from sharing data, like this concern happens from different kind of professionals, like how do I secure data, how do I share the data in a secure way? So you could use like interception, intervention, all these things. I am talking about man-in-the-middle attack, why it is a concern for many people and what you should do to avoid them. So identification of source, identification of journalist is all important from a data security perspective. So you could exchange encrypted USB drives in person, exchange small volumes of data via encrypted emails. Large attachments use a secure file sharing service. Digital exchange, onion share, these are some of those sites which are available for further reading. You can see that how these things could be used. Securely wipe the data using tools like Liquid. Some of the mobile security tips. People don't take mobile security as serious. Like people think that I don't need any protection on my mobile device. But it's not. It has to change because the threats as well as the attacks have changed their shift from a traditional computer to mobile device. Because mobile device is used for many different purposes. You access your social networking, you tweet, you chat, you do WhatsApp, you secure file sharing, you do all things from the mobile device. So you should make sure that you have these basic principles in place. Set a password and lock it if you don't use it. It's a no-brainer. And please put some complex passwords, not the 4-digit ones. Those can easily be broken by social engineering. Like I'm traveling in a flight, I can see at least 5 different passwords because people unlock their phones when the flight lands. They are not careful. Most of them don't even know they can actually use the fingerprint printer to unlock the phone. So they have the habit of doing or drawing the code so that they can unlock the phone. So put it a little bit complex.
Question. I know with my phone, if you encrypt it, you can't use fingerprint for the initial unlock, but you can use it subsequently. In that case, is the 4-digit passcode to get in and then fingerprint subsequent to that acceptable?
No, because your fingerprint scanner is linked with the 4-digit passcode.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. So you are not protected. So it's always better to use. So it's called entropy. So entropy means the longer the password, the tougher it will be for someone to remember or try to crack it. It's in one of the cartoons. So you can see that like how entropy, that's a term which is being used. So entropy is the higher the entropy, the tougher the passcode or the tougher the password. And don't reuse the passwords. People have a habit of using same password or maybe the 3-4 passwords in a circular way, like change it to other one, and then go back to the first one again. Never do that. Passwords should be disposable. Like after one use, you should dispose them. If you don't do that, then chances of guessing all your account passwords are pretty much on the higher side. So never do that. So turn off geotagging on the phones. So the phones are really a critical piece of information handling device now. So olden days, like if you have the flip open phones, they were not the smartphones. But the providers used to find out where you are. Now the phones are smart, so the phones know where you are. So if somebody have access to the phone, it can clearly find out where you have been if you you enable those geolocation tagging on your device. So go to your phone, privacy settings, and try to switch it off. I don't think that is needed for any other purpose except for some specific information. Turn it on and always remember to turn it back.
I just had a question about that. You know, we saw the cases with the Montreal and Quebec police being involved. Do you know, when they were able to track locations of journalists, was that done by the geolocation, or was that pinging off of cell phone towers? Do you know which one is, you know, more important to avoid as a journalist?
Yeah, there are two aspects to that. One is I cannot comment on that now
Oh, of course.
it's an ongoing stuff.
Yeah.
So I am not authorized to talk on that.
Yeah.
The second aspect is it could be any of these techniques. It could be the geolocation of the device, or it could be the triangulation by the mobile towers as well.
Yeah.
So what they used, I don't know.
Sorry, I think my question is more, what can we do for both of these issues? Turn off the geotagging, and in terms of the mobile towers, is there any way we can be safe about that?
Yeah, the mobile towers will always be there because that's the way in which the providers do that. Like it happens with roughly, this is high level what it happens. The phone has an IMEI number. That with the SIM is sent as a secure hash. Every time your phone comes online, like you switch it off, switch it on, that is sent as a hash to the nearest cell tower. So that's how it gets registered onto the network. So this is a high level, like there are a lot of details which goes under. So it goes as a secure encrypted communication from your device to the cell tower. So we cannot turn that off because then the phone is offline. Then the phone is in an airplane mode. So if the phone is in airplane mode, you can still use Wi-Fi to do many things. So if you are using Wi-Fi, then you have to be careful about like which Wi-Fi you are using. Whether that will send out the location. If you are accessing from a coffee shop, the coffee shop location can be found out. So these things are possible. So I'm not sure about whether it was legal, illegal, and all those things. So,
Of course.
yeah. No, the tracking.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you.
Second, the geotag, now it's very imperative that either Google or any apps that use, first they ask for the consent, right? For the geo-positioning or location. So is there any one way that we can kind of deny all of that?
Yeah, so that's a good question because apps are really crucial and critical because when the apps gets installed, it asks for a lot of acceptance, like whether you accept terms and conditions. A five-page end-user license agreement. How many of us read line by line? You don't. Do you read?
I copy it out, save it, and read it all.
Yeah. I did that.
And often I won't go near an app or an OS or whatever because of that. It doesn't make it easy sometimes, but sometimes you just have to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you see one of those file sharing services, picture sharing services, it's interesting. So there are terms and conditions. You have 12 pages. So the 9th page in one corner, there is 2 line items which caught my attention. So one of them was like, if you're posting a picture which is not owned by you and you get in trouble, somebody sues you and the app developer, you are liable to pay for the app developer's legal fees. It's a one line. So people don't read that and then try to accept the terms and conditions because they need an app. And they're in an urgent need to get that app. Which I don't understand. Like all these apps talk to different aspects like using APIs, like application program interfaces. It uses those API calls to get information or share information and stuff like that. All of us know, like sometime back, WhatsApp went through an update where they asked for the permission to share information with Facebook. Not aware? Yes? No? None of us use WhatsApp?
I don't know, my friends use it, so.
Oh, none of your friends use?
Nope. I've got one friend in Toronto who hasn't logged in like a year, so.
So I
It
use
says there are no updates.
I use WhatsApp, and it has something about like it's now encrypted. They put that a month ago, and I have no idea what sort of encryption or if it's any good.
Yeah, it's there in one of the slides.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So WhatsApp was bought by Facebook. So WhatsApp had an option on one of the updates. If you don't read the update properly and say accept and update, it will share information from your contacts with Facebook to customize your Facebook ad experience. So people had a 30-day period to go into their privacy settings and switch it off. So if you don't turn it off within the 30 days, then you can't turn it off. So all your information would be shared. It's dangerous, right? So people don't read the instructions and they get into trouble because of that.
What I've talked about before, geotagging. I mean, Android phones are particularly leaky that way for tracking you everywhere. Unless you get deep down in the settings and turn it off. And I'm not even sure because I haven't used my Android for a while, but Google's tracking you everywhere. You know, that's how their maps show whether there's congestion on a road because everyone's sitting there on that road in their car with their phones on, not using them, but Google knows where you are and whether you're stopped. So they accumulate all that, but you know, it goes into a US database further. So I just like to comment, it isn't necessarily just at the app level, but on Android it's very much at the phone level, or the Android level about grabbing your location if you don't click off all the right buttons. Or Android turn off your GPS and maybe half a dozen things locked.
Yeah, so there are two aspects to that. Like basically it's the device which is actually tracking you. So the apps will have access to that device information to say that, oh, I need access to that. So the device would control which app can talk and get that information. So
But Google also collects it at the operating system level very clearly if you go in there.
yes.
But regardless of whether you turn it off and all the apps or not. That's all I'm saying. It's also at an operating system level.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking as an Apple advocate in that realm by any means because Apple have their own problems. The best thing to do is to consider a phone quite a leaky device and don't put much on it. Including a contact list that can leak out,
Exactly. So my phone, I don't have any contacts.
I don't keep them on my phone for that reason,
So even if I lose my phone, I'm okay. So there is nothing, like somebody unlocks my phone, there is nothing. So that's one of those options. So Google is a different game. So this one has nothing to do with security. It's only about getting a sound sleep. I hope nobody noticed, but that's nothing to do with security. Social networking suffices. Some social networking users have become victim to fraud, online fraud on social networking platforms. And most people believe that attackers are targeting social networking platforms. Go through your friend list and stuff like that. And some people feel that their profile has been recreated, because your profile picture is public. Anybody online can get access to that. Right click, save as. They can create another profile with the same picture. Send a friend request to your current friends saying that, oh, I forgot that we are not connected. Why don't we connect again? And use that for social information harvesting. So that's another concern. Only half of the users use privacy settings of those services and then use them. And some people don't even know whether their settings are private or public. This is the concern. So it's a no-brainer, like you go to the privacy settings before you post, you can specify whom can access, who can see that, who can see the stuff. Login notifications and approvals. Any suspicious logins, you should get an alert. You should set that. And login approvals, use your phone as an additional authentication device for suspicious logins so that you get an alert. So some of the trends which has been there, like using hashtags on the Facebook post. But the concern with that is, on a Facebook post with hashtags, it becomes searchable. Even if you have made the post to your close group of friends. That's another risk. Securing home network, I don't know whether this would be a concern, but still, do change your Wi-Fi default SSID or ESSID. Don't make it identifiable, saying that it's Pete's home network or Pete's basement network kind of stuff. So anybody driving out can find out, and if it is in the broadcast mode, then people who are driving can clearly find out it's whose home and whose basement and stuff like that. They can drop in and ask for further social engineering kind of stuff, saying that there is some offer going on, we are Pete's friends, so Pete's wife, Pam might be there at home, so use that for social engineering. Oh, I forgot Pete's number, can you give it to me? So Pam gives Pete's number to him, and then this happens, right? Change the preset password for the router, it's recommended. Enable MAC address filtering on your home network on top of your Wi-Fi password, so that you know only approved devices are getting connected to your home wireless. And most people use VPN to avoid censorship and site blocking. So some of the sites which cannot be reached, blocked by your service provider, people use VPN to circumvent that and bypass that and get access to that. Targeted phishing campaigns. It's a no-brainer. These are two separate emails. So on one, this came from Bank of Montreal. It's definitely a phishing attack because it's not a genuine email. If you could see that it came from the host. So it's a no-brainer. You just hover your mouse around that to find out it's not. But people fall prey to this, thinking that it came from Bank of Montreal, and then go ahead and click this Get Started. When they click this in Get Started, it's another website which looks like the same bank, but if you go through the domain name, it is different. See this? This is another one from iTunes. See the iTunes, it came from Apple service, so people don't read through this, right? And people, when they go here and update now, see that? It's from a different website. And it comes from, and the domain name, the .com or .ca or .gov and those kind of stuff are not related with, only one is related with Apple. Rest of the stuff are not related to it. Passwords and email security, some of the common passwords, it's a no-brainer, password 123. Have you seen this?
Sorry, I'm not sure myself, but I'll take another crack at it.
Protect ourselves. You know, the most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera out on the Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog, and I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon,
And what's his name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And go to school.
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
School.
Hinsdale Area Senior High School
Oh, when did you graduate?
in 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. So you've had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number. Like number 1.
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
2/12.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So 3, 6, 12, 95.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong enough.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. 4, Well, it's only 3, but it's, you know, it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma. Most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so like,
What's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. Oh, Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, right here my password. Oh yeah. Yeah. But the important thing is they learn a terrible lesson.
So it's easy to get password using one of the social engineering unassuming and unexpected places. Like adults can do this, so think about that. Right? So it's a concern. So password tips, like think unique password for each account. Don't keep it the same. Don't use any of those dictionary passwords. It becomes easier for cracking. Focus on most important accounts, email and your social networks. Focus on that. Create a passphrase and turn it into a password. So password from a passphrase creation becomes easier because if you see that, like when I was 18, I dated Miranda Kerr for at least 2 weeks, no seriously. So create that into a password. So it becomes easier. It's a non-dictionary word. It becomes easier to create, easier for you to remember. The only thing is like for at least is a greater than symbol, and then 2 weeks. It becomes easier. And the same password combination can be used in many different ways, like uppercase, lowercase, or instead of weeks, you can use W3 kind of stuff. Never share or show your passwords, and never write the password. If you write a password, don't use it anywhere. Or you can mislead people by writing a password which you don't use and try to stick it onto your computer. So this is an example of a good password, like what I was talking about entropy. The longer the password, it becomes tougher to do that. So you have more number of bits for entropy, like more number of characters, it becomes tougher to get it correct. So you can use any of these combinations to get that, or create from a passphrase. Difficulty to guess is hard. Even though the word is pretty much simple to remember, this becomes tougher to remember, whereas this one can be easily remembered, and then tougher to crack. So it's a nice depiction of how a password can be created, which is much more tougher. And security is the weakest link. So you don't need high-end systems to crack a specific password. A $5 pipe wrench is good enough. Drug that person and then hit him hard so that he shares the password. So it becomes easier, right? So that's a common sense approach. So human beings are still the weakest link in the security chain. You might have the best of breed security solution which you are using, but if you don't know how to use it or just slip of tongue, you give them the password, then that's it, gone. So some of the password managers could be iCloud keychain, password safe, KeePass, 1Password, LastPass. So these are some of those password managers which you could use.
Do you have a preference?
I prefer all. You should have asked the second question. Why all?
Why not?
Yeah. Because you should not put all your eggs in one basket. So for specific purposes, you should use a specific password manager. For specific purposes, some other specific purposes, you should use another password manager. So that in the event of compromise, all your passwords are not compromised. So for your online banking access or online social networking, it's up to you to decide how it should be clubbed. So you can group it together and then create a specific password manager to access that. Email security is a no-brainer. Use strong passwords. Use a secure email service provider so that emails are encrypted. Encrypt your email. Verify your keys whenever you are encrypting or trying to decrypt. So I don't know how much technology I should talk, but I have a slide which talks about the basics of encryption and a little bit advanced on the encryption, like how the keys work. So if you're okay, I can show that, or else the basic should be good enough. This is the basic. So encryption is a box which has a cryptographic algorithm. So cryptographic algorithm is a formula which is being used for creation of a ciphertext from a plain text. So a plain text is meet me at 9. It goes through the processing of in the box of the crypto system. It becomes a ciphertext. So anyone having the access to the ciphertext cannot reconstruct the plain text, provided the system is not weak and the keys which are being used for encryption are short. So think of it like it's a mix. It's a mix of two things. Like crypto system will have encryption keys which will encrypt the system, which will encrypt the plain text and create a ciphertext. So imagine your system having only ciphertext information, all documents and stuff like that. Anyone having access to that is of no use, because you cannot make any sense of reading through lots of ciphertext. So secure keys, and also these are the real important things on the keys. So 4 basic principles of encryption are privacy, integrity, authentication and non-repudiation. Privacy, because only the interested recipient can see the information which you are sending or receiving. Integrity, the message cannot have been changed. That is the basics of encryption. Authentication, you know this message came from so and so person because it's encrypted by that person's key. Non-repudiation, the originator cannot deny that they did not send it because it's their key which is being used for encryption. It's a little bit scary, but I'll take you through it. Little bit or too much scary? Okay, so I'll take you through that. So this is a message. So there are 2 kinds of encryption systems, symmetric key and asymmetric key systems. So on a symmetric key, you will encrypt and decrypt using the same key, which you will share with the recipient. So how you share the key will be in a secure way, like you can give it to them in person, or you can send it through a secure channel of communication. Make sure that that is not compromised. So message gets encrypted, it becomes a ciphertext. The recipient receives it, decrypts using the same symmetric key, get the plain text message. So that's how a symmetric key encryption works. Now, people also started using digital signatures on their emails. So what a digital signature does is, creates the hash value of a message. So a hash value of a message is a one-way function. So think of it like you can make a pancake from the batter, but you cannot make a batter from the pancake. It's a one-way function, like there is no return. So once the pancake is made, you cannot get the batter out of the pancake. Right? So a hash is like that. So a hash is a one-way function. So a hash is created from the message and we get something called digest. So think of the digest as a pancake. So getting a pancake, nobody can find out from which batter it is made. So you cannot find the reverse from the processed product. So digest is a processed product and they cannot find out from which message this was created. So it's secure. So that gets the originator's private key and then attached to the message. So that's how a digital signature works. So when the recipient gets, so there are 2 sets of keys in there, a public key and a private key. So your public key, your recipients will be knowing this is your public key. And your private key you will never share with anyone. So when you send a message, you use your private key to encrypt. So the recipient decrypts the message using your public key. Confused? Clear? Good. So an asymmetric key encryption is always better because the number of keys which you have to manage is not too much because you have only two sets of keys, one public and one private. Public you can publish in your website or send it to your people. Having the public key alone is not going to help them to do anything against whatever you are sending. You will encrypt all the information using your private key. So that your private key should always be kept secure. In the case of symmetric key, it's a one-on-one. Like I send to you, you send to me, so we will have our set of two keys. So think of it like I communicate with thousands of my friends, all encrypted. How many keys I should maintain? So a symmetric key encryption will always created a problem. So it's a mix of both. Asymmetric key with digital signature is foolproof. All the four basic principles: privacy, integrity, and confidentiality, and the non-repudiation of messages. Web security, web browsing risk. Your data is being collected about your identity, your browsing behaviors, the pages you have visited, all those informations like data collection. If you use autofill information, it keeps all this information stored. Last three things are important: search engines and social networks. Keep track of a lot of information about you for analytics. So be careful with that. Facebook is notified whenever you visit one of the millions of sites that has a like button. So they know you are visited, so next time when you log in, you might see an ad which is happening, which is customized with that. If you ignore warnings about the certificates like man in the middle attack, this would happen. So what exactly is a man in the middle attack? Is the postal analogy. Alice sends Bob to send over a padlock, and Bob sends over a padlock. Eve intercepts Bob's padlock and sends her own padlock. Alice puts the message in a box and locks it with the padlock, which she thinks that it's Bob's padlock, but it's actually Eve's padlock, and sends the box over to Bob. So Eve intercepts the message again, the box again, because she has the key, she opens the box, fetches the message, manipulates the message, and put it back, and lock that with Bob's padlock, because she has Bob's padlock, because first interception, she intercepted the padlock, and sends it over to Bob. Bob receives it, uses the key, opens the box, and thinks that it is Alice who has actually sent the original message, but the message has been intercepted and modified. This is man in the middle attack. So how to prevent this? Alice can talk to Bob and ensure that it is his padlock which is on the box on which the message has been put and sent. Safe browsing. Use a general purpose browser, Firefox, Chromium, not Chrome, Chromium for Mac. So there are some open extensions, open source extensions which can be enabled, like HTTPS everywhere, NoScript, Ghostery, LastPass, Privacy Badger, AdBlock Plus. You could use all those open source add-ons to have a secure browsing. Tor, please visit that website, torproject.org. If you have not used Tor before, it has clear instructions how you should use it. Some of the recommendations on what platform you should use it. Tor has always a problem because the last connection is in clear text. It's not encrypted. So even though rest of the stuff is encrypted, Tor functions in a similar way. Like Tor is a network. So I talk to a person and that person talks to another person. So the second person won't even know the original request came from me. So that's how the Tor works. So there is no tracking happening, but the last mile is in clear text. So there are some guidelines as never open sensitive files which you download from Tor when you are online, and don't Google or search yourself or search anything when you are on Tor. So all these things are no-no. Search engines. All of us use Google. don't use Google. Because Google keeps track of whatever you are searching and it goes into analytics. So if you don't want to be tracked, it's always better to have DuckDuckGo, which is anonymous, they don't track. It can be set as default in many browsers, so which is good. IXQuick, Start Page, these are anonymous, unlocked, safe web searches for your research purpose and stuff like that. It's recommended by other journalists. Not recommended. This has been recommended by a group of journalists. The resource references are there in the link handout which is given to you. So you could also use Onion browser, anonymous browsing, RBOT for your Android devices. You could use that. Tor browser for Linux, OS X and Windows. Chat and voice calls, interesting, past week. Unfortunately, the most popular apps are spectacularly insecure. That's how the apps has been created. Fortunately, there are some free, decent alternatives for that. So no encryptions, many apps don't encrypt the content at all. So stay away from that, that's very dangerous. Partial encryption, because some of the apps encrypt your traffic from your device to the servers, but not end-to-end. So end-to-end encryption is all the way from you to the recipient. So WhatsApp, when you asked about WhatsApp has this end-to-end encryption because even the server won't know what you are chatting. But as the case with any secure app, the metadata could still be there, like with whom you are chatting, how much you are chatting, all those things can be found out. But it cannot be found out what you are chatting because that's how the keys has been exchanged between you and the recipient. And whenever the security code changes, WhatsApp actually sends you an alert that the person's code has changed. So always re-verify the code before you send another message again. Secure instant messaging client with OTR plugin, off the record plugin. Pidgin, ADM, Chat Secure, iMessage, WhatsApp, Signal, Text Secure. These are some of the secure apps. Not recommended are Google Hangout, Google TalkTalk, ICQ, Kik, Kakao, QQ, Snapchat, Viber, WeChat, and all those things are not recommended. Secure voice calls, FaceTime, it's secure. Red Phone and Signal for iOS and Android. These are for secure calls. Some of the top tips. If you are using a Mac, what you should do today is use Messages and FaceTime, end-to-end encrypted. In Safari, change your search engine to DuckDuckGo or some of the search engines which don't track. Install extensions to make sure that you have a safe and secure browsing. In Firefox or Chrome, change the search engine. Install the add-ons to make sure that you are secure and protected. You can download and install any of those which are recommended by other journalists who actually use it. So that secure browsing, anonymous browsing for your research topics and stuff like that, it's recommended if you are using a Mac. If you are using Windows, use a secure operating system, but Windows is popular, so people use Windows as well. Good.
So are we talking about the built-in or the default search engines of these platforms like Yahoo? Because if there are few apps that you install, that becomes a default browser. Like you said for Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
What is it like for Windows?
Yeah, so for Windows, don't use your default search engines.
So you say we switch to something else that takes care of that, right?
Yeah, go to DuckDuckGo and then use that as your search engine.
Okay.
You can use your existing browser, but also enable the add-ons which will make sure that ads are not tracking you, so that nobody tracks about what sites you visit.
The DuckDuck is kind of a plugin or is a search device
It's a search engine. You can use any standard browser like Safari or Chrome or Firefox and then set it. So if you see this, go to Safari and then preferences, search and choose the option saying that use DuckDuckGo. If you don't use that, by default if you open Safari, it will search using Google or it will search using something else but not DuckDuckGo. So if you use DuckDuckGo, you can do that. So there are techniques to find out. If you are still interested in finding out about what Google results are, you can compare. Open two browsers, search the same topics with Google and DuckDuckGo and IX Quick Search, all the three, and then compare the results and see. But one would be tracking, the other two won't be tracking. So if you don't want to be tracked, use untrackable or which doesn't trace you for many different purposes. Like one of those things like if Facebook is notified whenever you are visiting any site which has a like button.
That's not true though. If you install those extensions you talked about,
Yeah.
will block the Facebook and other buttons, social tracking buttons.
Yeah.
You won't see them and they won't be accessed.
Yeah. So why it is required? It's the way in which the ad searching and ad analytics is working. So that's how the business model is. So on iOS follow the same thing. Unfortunately, I didn't see any specific recommendations for Android from other journalists. So I assume that Android may not be a preferred platform for the journalists who are security conscious. So you could always refer to the references which has been given in the handout. That one of them is Center for Investigative Journalism. So they have created a handbook. It's very good. It's around 80 pages. I would highly recommend you read through that. They have given a lot of case studies, and if you are interested in finding out more about how to do encryption, how to send an encrypted email, and how to read an encrypted email, so that when you receive from one of your sources, how you should be able to do that, and always be ready. Like, who knows? It could be the next node trying to reach out to you, and you should be prepared. You cannot say that, oh, let me take till evening to set up a machine and then I'll call you back. They go to somebody else. And I assume that nobody wants that to happen, the sources going to somebody else, right? So these are the references. So this is the site which I said, and the Center for Investigative Journalism. DuckDuckGo is a good reference site, like you can use it for searching. Internet safety tips and Reporter. How many of you use or heard about the app called Reporter? No? So Reporter was created specifically. So when they did an analysis, where did they backtrack, or when they did reverse engineering on that app, they found out that it's a forensic tool. It finds out a lot of information about the journalists, their sources, their contacts, and it helps in analytics. Reporter. So read this first and then read this review saying that why they were saying that reverse engineering proves journalist security app is unsafe. So when you hear about a specific app, don't jump into it. Wait till a review and be doubly sure before you start adopting that as a preferred approach. Prism Break is highly recommended for open source app evaluation. Commercial apps are not evaluated, but open source free apps are evaluated, and people post their reviews and stuff like that. So Prism Break is pretty good, even though the name is a little bit scary. But Prism Break is a good site. Interesting. So I'm not going into the details, but you should take all the steps to make sure that you communicate in a secure way. If it is legal, then you can't help it. If it is illegal, then people can find it. Thank you. And you can follow me on Twitter, or if you have any queries, you can send it to my personal email, and I will be glad to respond. This is the same email ID which I use for my current affairs and tech column, which I handle in one of those online portals. So I keep getting a lot of interesting queries in that, like some of them from 12, 14-year-olds asking about like how do I hack my friend's computer, all those things. So it varies, like 70-year-old grandpa asking about how do I find out whether my wife is taking money from my account. Interesting. So all interesting information comes there. So maybe when I get retired, like maybe I will write my memoir like with all those information redacted and used it. So thanks for your time and thanks for your attention. I appreciate that on a Friday afternoon, taking some time and then giving me a wonderful opportunity to come and talk to you about the cybersecurity challenges in general and in specific to journalists. Please read through all the reference materials and the links, and then if you have any queries, concerns or feedback, send them my way on my contact. I will be glad to respond. It may take some time to respond, but I will definitely respond because I keep traveling.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Sangam, for speaking with us. And Deepak, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words about the Indo-Canadian Press Club.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So this session is a result of conversation between Jordan and Jagdish Sharma. She's Ethnic Media Forum coordinator. And and me. So Indo-Canadian Press Club is an initiative to bring in the multilingual journalists, not the mainstream, of course. Mainstream is really taken good care of. But those like him, he has a subject matter expertise. And he also has got a commitment to disseminate or kind of share on blog spots and then stuff like that. So we have a rich pool of talent, and most people in Toronto. I'm the only one in Ottawa. So this is a good outcome of a very, productive conversation. So we're looking forward to many more this conversation between CAJ, Indo-Canadian Press Club, and with the help of people like Claire and Dylan. And is Jordan back or is he still traveling?
Yeah, back as of a few days ago.
Yeah. Okay, so he'll be proud maybe, right? And this thought of interest in the journalist community or the CAJ about this topic that was primarily put forward by John. And he just got back from New York last night to Ottawa. So he was in a very hectic travel schedule on the whole of October, which is the Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Yeah, October is actually National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in US. It's a big thing. It's coordinated and it's recommended by Department of Homeland Safety. So many corporations, many schools, many organizations do these sessions, focus sessions in talking about cybersecurity for their employees, cybersecurity for home use. I also started doing the sessions for school kids. So some of the apps which I don't even know about, I'm learning from the school kids. Like these are some of the critical apps, and I am also working with some of specific agencies to make sure that the message gets across to the community so that it will be beneficial for them as well. Cyber impacts all of us, whether we work in IT profession, whether we work in school, whether we work in healthcare, whether we work as a journalist, it impacts all of us. So it's always better to have those basic security principles, basic security hygiene, which will make sure that we can always do online in a safe way.
So with that, I would request you going forward, is there any specific subject matter expertise which we can think of, may not be pertaining to the specific technicalities of media or journalism, like something which is relevant to us, we can always try to collaborate to pull those resources from Toronto or across Canada to a joint collaboration. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Great. Well, I think that's everything. Thanks very much. If you'd like to follow any more journalistic events, please go to caj.ca and they'll tell you more about our chapter, about our national group, and we have a huge conference coming up for Canada, 2017 here in Ottawa. So we've got lots of interesting programming this year. Thanks once again to Sangam. It was a really great presentation. So thanks.
I'm also part of the process. I write and all those things, so I'm also part of it. I understand the pain and all. I don't get information from sources because I'm not an active, it's not my profession. My profession is cybersecurity. So. But it's interesting.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a background.